appear to stretch forever, seemingly endless sheets of pack ice, surrounding the last true wilderness, the frozen continent of Antarctica. It's a barrier that few creatures dare penetrate. Although one relishes these waters, the swift and graceful minke whale. They're one of the few whale species to remain in the Antarctic all year round, with the largest concentrations in waters just like this, at the edge of the pack ice. The minke's speed has helped them become the most prolific of all whales in the Southern Ocean. Early whalers preferring their larger and slower-moving cousins. But now, minkies are the most hunted of all whales in the Antarctic. Japanese whalers killing hundreds each year in the name of science. That's not the only threat to the Antarctic and its creatures. Penguin numbers around the Antarctic Peninsula have been cut significantly as waters there warm up and winter sea ice contracts. The seal populations are still recovering after some species were almost wiped out by hunters. While the Antarctic itself is being affected by both the depletion of the ozone layer and global warming. As temperatures rise, ice shelves have been disintegrating. Scientists increasingly concerned that the western Antarctic ice shelf will collapse, raising sea levels around the world. This, then, is the story of the Antarctic today. The very real threats faced by both the continent and the hardy creatures that survive on it in this wildest Antarctica. The Antarctic has been described as the last paradise on Earth. A place of phenomenal beauty. Weather can be savage in the extreme. Temperatures so cold that creatures are frozen and mummified where they lay. It's also vast. At the height of winter, the Antarctic and its frozen seas fan out to cover an area as large as the USA and Europe combined. Locked up in its immense ice cap, 90% of the world's fresh water. Constant cyclones whip that source into the most inspirational of ice formations. But it's this reservoir that is giving scientists the greatest cause for concern. The obvious danger is that the western ice shelf will slide into the ocean as temperatures rise. And there's now irrefutable evidence that the mercury is indeed on the way up. Researchers have measured atmospheric temperature increases around the Antarctic Peninsula of 2.5 degrees since the Second World War. The offender? More greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. And while world governments are now acting by slashing greenhouse emissions, the fear is that too little is being done too late. In the Antarctic, entire penguin colonies would be at risk. Already, there's been a dramatic decline in the number of Adelie penguins in many rookeries around the Antarctic Peninsula. At fault, say researchers, a severe shortage of krill and contracting winter sea ice as both air and sea temperatures rise substantially. Adelies are the most broadly distributed penguins in the Antarctic, distinguished by their bright white rings around their eyes. For the entire winter, they have lived in the pack ice. Porpoising through the water helps avoid attack. But as the pack ice breaks up and melts, the Adelies begin returning to their breeding colonies on land. It's a ritual that takes place every year in October. The Adelies coming ashore to breed in the few brief weeks of summer. All around the Antarctic coast, the Adelies can be seen returning to their rocky colonies on islands, beaches, and headlands. What they'll try to do is return to the same nest and the same mate they had in the previous year. And they'll spend some time calling and posturing vigorously to establish their identity and their claim to the nest site. What follows is the act of mating. Two eggs normally result, both the male and female taking it in turns to incubate them for the next month. The eggs hatch within 3 days of one another, delivering 2 fluffy charcoal grey chicks. It's usually the firstborn chicks that fatten up first, some appearing extremely plump. They have enormous appetites, these young chicks, and it's very common for youngsters to pursue parents for more food. Eventually, the parents give in, regurgitating its catch of krill and fish for the chicks. What happened several summers ago is that a severe shortage of krill caused many young chicks to starve because their parents had to travel too far away in search of food. Scientists monitoring an Adelie penguin colony at Mawson Base recently witnessed every single chick perish. Those chicks that survive grow very quickly. Within 10 weeks, they begin to molt, resulting in some striking fashion statements. They now group together for protection and warmth, as both parents now collect food for them. By 3 months, all of their down has been replaced by adult feathers. At last, they're ready to go to sea. Ahead, a trip of unknown magnitude, because most will not return until they're old enough to breed, at least 3 years from now. For the Adelies, indeed, face an uncertain future. In recent decades, 21 colonies have become extinct. And even though there are now more than 2 million of them, the krill shortage does show just how vulnerable the species is. Far more prolific are the chin-strap penguins. Their trademark is that black line below their chin, just like the strap of a soldier's helmet. These chin straps are more aggressive than the Adelies. Take their courtship, a very boisterous affair. And when it comes to building a nest, they'll blatantly steal rocks and sticks from their neighbors. They also lay only 2 eggs each summer. As a species, their feisty character is guaranteeing their numbers remain relatively stable. As with the Adelies, their chicks fledge around the end of February. It's then they're at their most vulnerable. Many chin straps will come under attack, those that survive wearing the bloodied signs of a mauling. Their gentler cousins, the Gen 2s, also show signs of a savaging. This one has almost certainly been struck by a leopard seal. On land, there's an even more audacious predator, nicknamed the Raptor of the South. It's the skua, basically a big, brown, noisy gull. Skuas thrive on attacking injured penguins. This Adelie is too weak to ward off an attack, the skua standing by to move in for the kill. While skuas are territorial birds, They'll often work in pairs, one distracting the adult while the other attacks, then both joining in the kill. In fact, skuas will scavenge from whatever flesh they can, even from dead seals. Undaunted by its mother watching on, this skua pecked apart its dead youngster. But one creature a skua is not scared of is another skua. These birds fought long and hard over the remains of a dead penguin. Such was the intensity of their bickering, they failed to notice their bounty floating away. During the summer, skuas will raise their chicks. They're still a little unsteady in their first few days, but within 3 months, they too will be big enough to hunt. One of the skua's targets is the gentoo. They are far more timid than their cousins, their population numbering just 300,000 breeding pairs. Gentoos can be identified by their orange beaks and white markings above their eyes. When finding their mates and protecting territory, they too can be extremely loud. But in contrast to the noisy Adelie and chinstrap rookeries, the gentoos are generally far more placid. They'll spend much time preparing their coat for the frigid weather. Taking oil from a gland at the base of their tail and coating their feathers. This treatment gives a powerful waterproofing to their feathers, which are incredibly tightly packed. That, and a thick layer of space, allows them to survive in the freezing waters of the Antarctic for months at a time. Whereas other penguin species will swim long distances in search of food, the more sedate gentoo will usually feed close to his breeding colony. What he does is dive deeper than his cousins, allowing him to catch krill and fish that elude them. Of all the penguins, the emperor penguin is indeed an emperor. The only penguin species to breed during the long, dark Antarctic winter. They're also the biggest of all the penguins, standing and weighing half as much as a human adult. The emperors are formidable in many respects. By staying close together, they're able to maximize their own chances of survival. And to travel, they use an ingenious method of getting around. Emperors choose breeding colonies on stable sections of sea ice, sheltered by icebergs and coastal ice cliffs. It's here they'll cluster together through the darkest depths of winter, the males incubating a solitary egg on their feet. The chicks that hatch are pure fluff balls. These juveniles are now 4 months old, having survived brutal winter storms that have killed hundreds of chicks. At this stage, they're still being fed by their parents. Within weeks, though, they'll be ready to go to sea, where they'll stay and fish for the next few years until they return here to breed. The adults are also preparing to go to sea again. In these dying days of summer, they're shedding their last feathers, the process of molting, one which they go through every year. These are days of comparative luxury for the emperors, a time of intense preening. By March, this mutual preening leads to mating. So completely and effectively are their feathers coated with protective oils that emperors literally shimmer when they stand tall and breathe deep. Theirs is a life of extremes, their real test of survival faced during the frequent freezing blizzards that rake the Antarctic. It's then that they go into a huddle, constantly reshuffling their positions as each bird tries to find the center to stay warm. Other birds will line up, the first taking the full brunt of the chilling winds, while others will fall to their chests. It's conditions like this that they'll endure, the males going without food for up to 4 months as they incubate their egg. The same sea ice that provides a home for the emperor penguins is also a sanctuary for seals. They're excellent swimmers and divers. But as mammals, their need to breathe air means they can be seen frequently right around the Antarctic coastline. On land, they're sluggish creatures, spending large amounts of time simply lazing. To survive the cruel Antarctic climate, seals have adapted with big round bodies, layers of blubber, and small extremities. One of the 5 species of seals to live in the Antarctic is the Weddell. An extremely fat animal that weighs up to 4 times more than the average human. No mammal lives further south than the Weddell seal, who's perfected the art of staying warm. They spend a lot of time under the inshore sea ice, finding it warmer in the water than in the air. lucky to have survived it all, is the Antarctic fur seal. They're an aggressive species that fur hunters of the late 19th century exterminated in some places, with their total population elsewhere reduced to a few thousand. Fur seals have made a remarkable recovery in terms of numbers, with the male holding a territory and actively defending a group of females. And then there's the leopard seal. They're the largest of the true Antarctic seals, blessed with a sleek body and reptilian head, and renowned for their hunting prowess. Their delicacy are Adelie penguins. Of course, the Adelies know this. During the breeding season, thousands of them will crowd small strips of icy shoreline. Waiting in ambush, the leopard seal. The Adelies will enter the water very cautiously and then swim at speed in a bid to elude attack. The leopard seal has other plans. Once he's attacked, he'll play mercilessly with his dying victim. On the giant ice shelves that border the Antarctic, signs of phenomenal forces of nature at work. Fierce katabatic winds, the strongest winds on the planet, roar off the polar plateau at speeds faster than the fastest Ferrari. They're fanning winds that can drop temperatures to as low as 90 degrees below zero. Despite these formidable forces, the Antarctic is still a place of surprising vulnerability. In the last few years, there have been a number of alarming signs. Giant chunks of ice the size of big cities have been breaking free, with the disintegration of both the Werde ice shelf and the northern part of the Larsen ice shelf. And in West Antarctica, glaciologists fear a catastrophic change is underway, that the major ice sheet there is already unstable and in danger of sliding into the sea. Recent measurements below water show the ice sheet is currently undergoing rapid and dramatic change. It could still take several decades for the western ice shelf to slide into the sea, but once it does, sea levels around the world could rise as much as the height of a two-story house. The effect on both man and wildlife would be profound as land and cities are submerged. If the Antarctic is indeed the world's early warning system, then be warned. One sign of changing temperatures comes from lichens, one of the only plants to survive on the Antarctic continent. They are now flourishing as temperatures rise. And under serious threat, the most abundant animal in the world, the Antarctic krill. These shrimp-like crustaceans are so plentiful that the total weight of all of them is more than that of the entire world's human population. But three factors are now threatening their numbers: overfishing, higher levels of ultraviolet light as the ozone layer thins, and reduced quantities of their feed as temperatures rise. Krill is the main food of most creatures of the Antarctic. The term krill, in fact, is Norwegian for whale food. And it's the primary food of baleen whales in the Antarctic. These minke whales are cruising a break in the fast ice to catch krill. The emperor penguins sense that food is in abundance. They've moved out of their breeding colony, where the males have gone 5 months since eating. Understandably, they're keen to eat again. The whales and penguins are now clearly in competition. For the emperors, there's no threat from the minkies, but nonetheless many are still cautious, standing back until the whales have had their fill. Then it's time to take the plunge. Had it been these whales, the emperors would have been ripped apart. Not for nothing are the orcas known as killer whales. Penguins and seals are both their speciality. They stalk the waters of the great Southern Ocean, and it's indeed a rare event when they cross paths with a group of humpbacks. Another heartening sight is that of the giant blue whale, the largest animal to ever live. They'd all but been wiped out by whalers less than half a century ago. Scientists have been concerned that their numbers were so depleted that there were too few of them to find a mate in the vastness of the Antarctic waters. Signs of the wholesale slaughter of whales can be seen all around the Antarctic. Thankfully, an end to whaling, all but the minkies, has meant that whale numbers are at last beginning to recover. Humpbacks can at last be seen in relative profusion, but not so just 4 decades ago, when all but 1,000 were killed off. There are playful species, surfacing and diving repeatedly in flamboyant displays. the excesses of a past generation of whalers, the recent creation of a whale sanctuary in the Southern Ocean is indeed reassuring. Away from the Antarctic continent, the Southern Ocean is whipped by almost perpetual storms. There is almost no land at all in the vast stretches of water that extend from the Antarctic to 40 degrees south, and therefore no impedance to the turbulent winds that whip around and around the globe. Here swim Peale's dolphins, characterized by striking black and white markings and a boisterous spirit that makes them leap well clear of the water. They're one of the few dolphin species to be found around the Antarctic, swimming and playing in large groups. The bird life is prolific too. Huge flocks of Cape petrels fill the sky. And giant albatross display all of the grace that has charmed mariners for centuries. What does break the vastness of the Southern Ocean is the occasional speck of land. These have become bleak outposts for a fascinating collection of wildlife. For starters, there are the royal penguins. These can be found in just one place in the world, Macquarie Island, midway between the Antarctic and Australia. They were once exploited for their oil, but public outrage has led to Macquarie being declared the first nature reserve on a sub-Antarctic island. Consequently, the royals have recovered, with close to 1 million breeding pairs at last count. In the waters just off their breeding colony, the royals will spend hours cleaning themselves. This they accomplish by swimming quickly at the surface and ruffling their feathers. At the height of summer, the trails to their inland colonies are alive with traffic. Both parents will feed their young downy-covered chicks, regurgitating the small crustaceans and lanternfish they've been feasting on. There's also plenty of mutual preening at this time of year. By May, the colony will be deserted, the prelude to that when both chicks and adults molt. They're an aggressive breed, these royals, and it's not unusual for fights to draw blood. And then there's their biggest challenge, the elephant seals. a big group of these brutish creatures has chosen to rest right where the royals walk, leading to something of a royal retreat. Not every royal escapes so easily. They're the most impressive and largest of all seals, these elephant seals, and they love to throw their weight around. Adult males can weigh as much as 4 tons. During the breeding season, they challenge one another for the ultimate privilege, that of maintaining a harem of up to 70 females. One of the most prolific of all the sub-Antarctic islands in terms of wildlife is South Georgia. Rockhopper penguins thrive here. So too do the most colourful and spectacular of all penguins, the kings. What is ironic is that it was here, from South Georgia, that so much hunting of whales, seals and penguins took place during the 19th century. The kings were ruthlessly exploited for their fat and plumage, but their numbers have since increased to the point the species appears secure. The king penguins are slightly smaller than the emperor, far sleeker and more brightly coloured. They're also far more flamboyant, greeting each other with an elaborate and noisy ritual. Both parents will incubate their egg on their feet. Held in place by a fold of abdominal skin, they take loving care of it. The result of such fastidious treatment is a delightful arrival in late summer. From their earliest days, they make themselves heard. These chicks grow rapidly, wearing their brown woolly down coat throughout the relatively short sub-Antarctic winter. During this bitter period, as many as 3,000 chicks will huddle together for warmth. What follows is the process of molting, which can take up to a month. For these mature birds, it signals that they're ready to court and mate. Moving around their colony, the king penguins display a certain grace and beauty. Interestingly, the kings do not build a nest, but instead protect their own personal space. Bloodshed is not uncommon. Their inquisitive nature often places them at great risk. And after a season in their breeding colony, they too will take to the water. They're great divers, these king penguins, capable of swimming extremely fast as they chase squid and small fish. Other successful fishers are the giant albatross which breed here. On land, as they nest and rear their young, they're relatively safe. But not so when they take off on their famous sorties around the Southern Ocean. Three out of every 4 albatross fall victim these days to long-line fishing lines, and consequently the species has just been listed as endangered. These albatross are renowned for their size, their wings stretching almost as long as an average car. And in flight, they soar effortlessly on the updrafts, sometimes covering distances greater than the diameter of the Earth. Nesting right along cliff tops in the subantarctic, imperial shags. They'll hatch up to 3 chicks in summer, noisy youngsters who demand a feed. And the parents will oblige, frequently regurgitating small fish they've caught off the coast. Fascinating to watch is just how far down the parents' throats the young will go in pursuit of a meal. Their displays are colourful affairs as well. Fluttering their throats in this way sends air over a moist membrane, which in turn cools them down, something like when a dog pants. More significant is this mutual display that reconfirms bonds when adults return to the nest with food for the chicks. And finally, there's the Magellanic penguin. When it comes to nesting, they'll often dig burrows or hide under bushes to escape the harsh sun and predators. It's in this environment they'll breed during summer. By February, they're beginning to molt. And then follows the amazing ritual of going to sea. One by one, the birds will march to the beach, where they'll mass together. For days on end, they'll wait patiently, and then it begins. A mass movement, at first one, then the whole colony begins surging into the ocean. Group after group will act collectively like this, going to sea for the next few months to search for crustaceans and fish. For the Magellanics, the next cycle of their harsh existence is only just beginning. Looking to the future of the Antarctic, it's hard not to marvel at just how magnificent, awesome, and pristine it is. But in places, there are already signs of pollution. Reminders of the excesses of whaling remain. While that growing hole in the ozone layer is still of major concern. Thankfully, a great deal is now being done to save and protect the Antarctic. World governments have enacted and are honoring a host of treaties to prevent mining and protect the environment. Tourist operators are limiting visitor numbers to key sites, while the prolific wildlife of this unique frontier is showing every sign of a grand recovery.